So we are all in this room insiders. We are the most elite news. I mean, just the thing you said about isn't it easy to tell by taking these newspapers would require you to look at two different newspapers, which already locks out 95% of the country. How is a person who only reads one newspaper ever to know where that newspaper stands? So one of the things that often happens is elites are perfectly comfortable with there being information about how they make their decisions and what their biases are, as long as that only circulates among other elites. But the minute it goes out into the wider world, so the difference between you could find out and the newspaper tells you is in many ways the difference between we know, us Chardonnay swilling news junkies, and everybody knows. And everybody knows isn't about the information, it's about the social environment in which the Times has to do its business.
And you're going to be helping with the Times, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
I will be objective.
Yeah.
That's why I'm there. I will be objective.
Yeah.
That's why I'm there. Like,
Yeah.
after the campaign, I'm like, no, I need to get back in the news and keep doing it because, like, this isn't going to change.
So as the gatekeeper for like videos on the New York Times, do you get to like make sure that you like can make sure your message is heard?
Yeah.
Cool.
Like, my voice is on my imprint's on every video we do.
Cool.
So I like that. I target his businesses, his dumb of his son, Donald Jr. and Eric. So they're running Trump, like the Trump business.
Mm-hmm.
Target that. Get people to boycott going to his hotels. Boycott. So a lot of the Trump brand is the thing. If you can ruin the Trump brand,
Yeah.
and you put pressure on his business, and you start investigating his business, and you start shutting it down, whether hacking or other things, he cares about his business more than he cares about being president.
Right.
He would resign. Or he'd lash out and do something incredibly illegal, which he would have to.
Well, promise me this.
But
Just make sure that you put that in the front.
we always say.
The Times Ethical Handbook clearly states, quote, "Journalists have no place on the playing fields of politics. Staff members are entitled to vote, but they must do nothing that might raise questions about their professional neutrality or that of the Times," unquote.
Like, as a journalist, I'm not able to give any money to any political organization. I'm not able to volunteer for any political organization. I'm not able to work for any nonprofit or charity. Like, there's a lot of guidelines and like ethics.
So you've never been involved politically or anything?
Oh, I have.
Oh, you have?
I was a volunteer strategist for the Clinton campaign, and that's why I ended up at Upworthy, because I wasn't deemed a journalist anymore.
Oh, so wait, how do you kind of square that though?
So
Did you have to disclose that to them?
I had to leave my job at Fusion ABC to then take a job at Upworthy, where I wasn't deemed a journalist anymore, to be able to work for the Clinton campaign.
So
Thank you for trying.
Yeah.
So that was
It
before.
was a gallant effort.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, okay, I saw the threat and I was like, I want to do something. I can't just do what I do, because, Trump was a threat, and
Trump is a threat.
still is a threat.
He's a threat.
You still think he's a threat, right?
Oh, he's a threat to everything.
The one thing that Jim Comey said, and I've met him, he's a great guy, actually.
How'd you meet Comey? Just like working in the campaign?
Godfather.
He's your godfather? Really? How does that happen?
My dad and mom and his wife for a really long time.
How can they report
They can.
without being biased, right?
You're right, 100%. 100%.
Would you agree with me that the Times kind of unfairly reports?
They unfairly, yes. I agree 100%. That they unfairly report on him. Right, it's all been hearsay. Maybe he did this, maybe he did that. Yeah. You're right, 100%. They haven't been able to prove it. So,
Well, 100%. That's how I feel like Times
you're right.
has covered this, right?
Yeah, 100%. You're right. It's all hearsay.
And you're in the office all the time, so you get to like see it
Yeah,
firsthand.
hearsay. It's all hearsay. And they're like, grab that hearsay and let's put it out there.
Sometimes the Guardian, the BBC, like, or not the Guardian, the BBC, the Washington Post, people who have paywalls up. The main objective is to grab subscribers. Yeah. You do that any way that you can.
Even if the Times says, okay, yeah, secretly we're liberals, and now publicly we're liberals, and there it is, they still have the dilemma of not wanting to create the news they cover. And it's a difficult problem.
That's a tough one.
They got around it in a really interesting way with Obama. Their obvious, their obvious second favorite candidate after Clinton. Clinton, the liberal consensus candidate, would have been there, and I think probably was their candidate inside for a while. But the Obama story was the huge dilemma for horse race political coverage, because no one would have given you even 100-to-1 odds. In 2006, no one would have given you 100-to-1 odds on an African-American president. But they ended up covering Obama because of the newsworthy things that were happening around the Obama campaign. So you could not say, oh my goodness, for the first time there's a viable African-American candidate, because by the act of saying that, you would be creating the story you were nominally covering, and so they hung up on this. But they could say, oh my goodness, Obama girl, isn't this funny? This funny video that this young woman did about now our future president, now our current president. Or will.i.am did a video that was a huge breakout on YouTube. And so they covered it. They covered Obama from the internet culture angle, and a bit at a time, it became acceptable to consider that he might be president. But they needed someone else to make the first move.
They were not covering Occupy Wall Street, and that was because it was a liberal protest, and because if the New York Times ran out there to cover it, it would share a liberal bias, despite the fact that they would easily run out there to cover a Tea Party protest.
But so the problem is, if you want Occupy Wall Street to succeed, you want them not to get press coverage in the beginning. It mattered so much to Occupy Wall Street that no newspaper sent them any traffic in the beginning, so that by the time the media stuff appeared, they had a cultural core that was solid enough to absorb that traffic. And if the Times had thought they were doing them a favor by saying, oh, 20 kids slept overnight in a park and this is going to shake the world, it would have shaken the world less than it has now. So even if the Times were being completely tactically liberal, they still wouldn't want to rush in and front run that story. The other thing the NPR's got is that the whole idea of sponsorship has been made ridiculous. NPR runs advertising, but because of the way the tax code is written, they don't have to call it advertising. But a radio ad plus a URL is direct marketing. So the invention of the web has created an enormous wind in NPR sales for raising money through an advertising model, but they don't pay taxes if it's an advertising model. Were that loophole to be closed, NPR would be in some trouble.
But now one of those women is speaking out, saying she was totally misquoted. Here she is now to set the record straight, joining us from Raleigh, North Carolina, former model Roanne Brewer-Lane. What was your reaction when you read this article yesterday?
Actually, it was very upsetting.
Why?
I was not happy to read it at all. Well, because the New York Times told us several times that they would make sure that my story that I was telling came across. They promised several times that they would do it accurately. They told me several times, and my manager several times, that it would not be a hit piece, and that my story would come across the way that I was telling it, and honestly, and it absolutely was not.
What did they get wrong?
Well, they did take quotes from what I said, and they put a negative connotation on it. They spun it to where it appeared negative. I did not have a negative experience with Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And I don't appreciate them making it look like that I was saying that it was a negative experience, because
you knew him
not.
very well, right? You dated him for several months?
That's correct. Yes. And he never made me feel like I was being demeaned in any way. He never offended me in any way. He was very gracious. I saw him around all types of people, all types of women. He was very kind, thoughtful, generous. He was a gentleman. He was a gentleman, and it was.
The New York
Go ahead.
Times, this is a quote from the article. Donald J. Trump had barely met Roanne Brewer Lane when he asked her to change out of her clothes. True or false?
False. He made a comment, now that's a stunning Trump girl right there. I was actually flattered by. I didn't feel like it was a demeaning situation or comment at all. And that's what I told the Times. And they spun it completely differently. I don't want that out there. That's not how it was. That's not how it felt. And it's just not what I want out there. He was a very good guy, Donald, and I think he's doing a good job in this race, and I think that some people have a problem with that.
Did he ever mistreat women?
Not that I've ever seen. Absolutely, without a doubt, no. I read it this morning, and I didn't sleep all night, and I'm here talking about it now because that's important to me. I don't like what they did.
I will be objective. That's why I'm there. I will be objective. That's why I'm there.